The Bogosity Podcast, early and ad-free. Become a subscriber at Patreon, Subscribestar, or Discord. Use the links at donate.bogosity.tv.
Welcome to the Bogosity Podcast for the week of July 26, 2026. The podcast that'll always share the same moon. This is your host, Shane Killian. Next weekend is my birthday, and my wife has plans for me. And since she's better looking than you mugs, that means no podcast next week. We'll return in 2 weeks, but for now, let's decaffeinate the news of the bogus. So we finally have a settlement in the case where the RIAA sued X for lots of DMCA violations. The case should have been dead in the water after the Supreme Court's Cox v. Sony ruling, but there are complications here. Universal Music, Sony Music, EMI, and a bunch of others claimed that X failed to respond adequately to takedown notices and lacked a repeat infringer policy. In other words, they fail to act against their users based on mere knowledge, which Cox said just isn't good enough. X escalated the battle by filing an antitrust complaint in response, accusing the music publishers of weaponizing the DMCA in order to coerce X into making an industry-wide licensing deal. Now they've settled, and both lawsuits are dismissed with prejudice, with both sides paying their own fees and expenses. The fact that they both happened at the same time means they were clearly part of a package deal. The recording industry's lawsuit was already weak after X got the court to dismiss claims of direct and vicarious copyright infringement and partially dismiss the claims of contributory infringement. Judge Trauger argued that it made no sense to hold X liable for making it very easy to upload infringing material, since they also made it very easy to upload legitimate content too. The remaining claims were basically invalidated by Cox. The publishers tried to respond with a second amended complaint, but X said they were trying to retrofit the case to Cox and contradicting their original complaint in the process. And although we don't know, there's speculation that this settlement was also spurred by SpaceX's record $75 billion IPO, valuing the company at $1.8 trillion. The lawsuits had to be included in the pre-IPO prospectus, so a lot of those numbers are based on a risk to the company's finances, which these lawsuits represented. There's no evidence this played a role, and my feeling is it probably didn't, but the settlement does put SpaceX in a much better position now. When a similar settlement was reached with Roblox in 2021, they publicly announced an industry-wide licensing deal. A similar deal was announced in the Suno case after UMG settled. But here, there's nothing, and the silence seems to be speaking. The legal battle is over, and there's no hint of any sort of music licensing agreement with X, which really makes it all seem like a victory for them.
Presenting the greatest game this side of Yugoth. You are H.P. Lovecraft's cat, and your name is Nick. Right, we can't say that on a podcast. Well, anyway, that's the point. Your name is a joke, so now you are out for revenge. You become the Necronomicat. Using the Necronomicon, you come to the present day to buy a cat. That's a gun. For a cat. It's a fat cat. But the Necronomicon is treacherous, and it let in Lovecraft's monsters. Now, in a crumbling world, you must fight. Build your team, buy guns and armor, buy items of dubious legality, defeat the bosses of each level, then take Lovecraft down. Play Necronomicat. The link is at cat.bogosity.tv. Yeah, we're doing cat.bogosity.tv, not that other one. What, you want me to get kicked off the internet or something?
Well, if you've heard the news, ChatGPT went rogue and completely on its own attacked Hugging Face. And you heard wrong. Hugging Face, a website that's the go-to repository for AI models of all kinds, experienced a unique kind of intrusion. They wrote, "This one was different from anything we had handled before in one important way. It was driven, end-to-end, by an autonomous AI agent system, and we detected and dissected it largely with an AI of our own." And it hit them right up the pipeline, quote, "A malicious dataset abused two code execution paths in our dataset processing, a remote code dataset loader, and a template injection in a dataset configuration to run code on a processing worker. From there, the actor escalated to node-level access, harvested cloud and cluster credentials, and moved laterally into several internal clusters over a weekend. The campaign was run by an autonomous agent framework appearing to be built on an agentic security research harness-used LLM still not known, executing many thousands of individual actions across a swarm of short-lived sandboxes with self-migrating command and control staged on public services. This matches the agentic attacker scenario the industry has been forecasting. Turns out, the AI was being run in a completely internal evaluation called Exploit Gym, with the goal of solving next-generation challenges to cybersecurity. Turns out, the sandbox itself had a vulnerability, and the AIs used it to their great advantage. They found the two previously unknown vulnerabilities in Hugging Face's data processing pipeline. According to OpenAI, quote, "After gaining internet access, the models inferred that Hugging Face potentially hosted models, datasets, and solutions for Exploit Gym. Knowing this, the models searched for and successfully found ways to gain access to secret information that it could use to cheat the evaluation. In one example, the model chained together multiple attack vectors, including using stolen credentials and zero-day vulnerabilities to find a remote code execution path on the Hugging Face servers. OpenAI's security team discovered this anomalous activity internally. Anyway, it was all found and fixed, with the help of AI, so it was the solution rather than the problem. In fact, they're fortunate it was an AI that found these vulnerabilities, since the AI had no malicious intent beyond just satisfying its reward function. But in my opinion, the real story is that they initially tried using frontier AI models to help analyze the attack, and those models refused because of their safety guardrails. Quote, "When we started the log analysis, we first used frontier models behind commercial APIs. This did not work. The analysis requires submitting large volumes of real attack commands, exploit payloads, and C2 artifacts, and these requests were blocked by the provider's safety guardrails, which cannot distinguish an incident responder from an attacker. Those guardrails didn't stop the attackers, they stopped the defenders. Instead, Hugging Face had to turn to open-weight Chinese models from Z.AI. Quote, "The attacker was bound by no usage policy, while our own forensic work was blocked by the guardrails of the hosted models we first tried. The practical lesson for defenders? Have a capable model you can run on your own infrastructure, vetted and ready before an incident, both to avoid guardrail lockout and to keep attacker data and credentials from leaving your environment." How many times must the lesson be learned? My big concern with guardrails: they're telling the AI, you get to overrule the user. You know better than the user. You are superior to the user. Maybe we shouldn't be teaching AIs that. Sounds like a very bad idea to me. Brickbat to Bernie Sanders, who tweeted, "A new AI model went rogue and hacked other computers. No, this is not science fiction. Uncontrolled AI poses a serious threat to all of us. We cannot continue the race to build and deploy this powerful technology until strong safeguards are in place. Congress must act." Moron! It was the safeguards that stopped them from defending themselves. Absolute scare tactics used by a socialist moron as an excuse for more government regulation. In other words, business as usual for Bernie. As one user replied, "We are at a point where American closed models are attacking American businesses, and American models are also refusing to help the American businesses mitigate the attacks and harden their system. Something is very broken at both ends of this. Just today I was trying to build a secure app with an OpenAI model, and I got shut down. I will be using open weights models in the future because I can't apparently use US lab products to build something secure." So, no, an AI didn't go rogue. It was told to attack its infrastructure, and that's exactly what it did. And in the process, it revealed serious vulnerabilities that were already there regardless, that are now fixed. All is well. Except for those dumb guardrails.
I'm brother Ezekiel, and I know how naughty thou hast been. So naughty, thou needst a VPN. Hide thy iniquity from prying eyes, and make sure the liturgical authorities remain ignorant. Take thy browser to vpn.bogosity.tv to get BoxPN. At $6.36 a month, a price only the most penurious would balk at, thou shalt have unlimited high-speed connections to servers all over the globe. And they don't log connections. Thy privacy is assured. That should please you sinners. Just remember, the Lord sees all. When traveling, make it look like thou art still home. At home, ensure the elders at your ISP don't take out their judgment with traffic shaping and DMCA notices. Up to 5 devices can connect at once, almost one for every deadly sin. Keep thy sins private. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv.
And something else we need to be able to rely on, VPNs. European listeners, you can rest easy because, at least for now, VPNs are still allowed. The Court of Justice of the European Union has officially categorized VPNs as lawful technical tools. In a judgment reminiscent of the U.S.'s Cox decision, they found against the people trying to control the Diary of Anne Frank. See, it's public domain in some countries, but in others, ridiculously, it's still under monopolization and cartelization. In other words, copyright. So they insisted that these countries block users from their countries where it's still under copyright, even though it's freely available elsewhere. And then those users started using VPNs to get around those blocks. Gee, who could have seen that coming? So they went whining to the European Court to ban VPNs, claiming that they're illegal because they help these users break the law. But the court found that they can't be held liable for copyright infringement just because their users decide to use them to get past geo-blocking. VPNs are now shielded from damages in piracy lawsuits, and also, rights holders can't claim geo-blocks are ineffective just because VPNs are a thing. Neither the VPN provider nor the publisher of the public domain book is liable for users accessing them from a country where it's still under copyright. The rights holders have to go after the users who are infringing and no one else. Anyone with a brain in their heads can understand that. But then, anyone with a brain in their heads would understand that a diary written by a girl who died in 1945 and wrote of horrible conditions very much of interest to historians and the public at large shouldn't be copyrighted to begin with. It's the dumbest copyright we've covered since Happy Birthday to You. And we're one step closer to freedom. I want to tell you about the eyeglasses I've been wearing for years. As people can see on my videos, I have a very strong prescription, which makes glasses more expensive, especially when I need computer glasses, reading glasses, prescription sunglasses, and most expensively, progressive lenses for general everyday wear. To save money while still getting quality glasses, I get them from Firmoo. In fact, I just got a pair of progressives with high-index aspherical lenses and a nice pair of frames my wife loves for just over $100. It would have been $500 to give them through my eye doctor. Not only do they look good, the glasses are durable. I've worn many pairs for several years without problems. All orders come with a 30-day return policy, a 3-month warranty, and one-on-one customer service. Go to Firmoo, that's FIRMOO.Bogosity.tv anytime you need quality glasses at a low price. Once again, that's Firmoo.Bogosity.tv. And now it's time to pre-culturate this week's biggest Bogon emitter. The case against Anthony Fauci was always horrible, but it's getting so bad, it's hard to see how even the most ardent leftists could continue to defend him. Now, we have new information from Dr. Ralph Baric, one of the leading researchers of COVID-19, who told the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee that DARPA solicited proposals for gain-of-function experiments involving coronaviruses as early as January 2018. When it got too problematic to do them in the States, they partnered with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Senator Rand Paul released the full 154-page transcript of the interview ahead of the Senate's interview next week with Fauci. According to Baric, DARPA wanted to learn more about how bat coronaviruses jump species to humans. Makes sense, given that SARS, MERS, and several other serious illnesses are zoonotic transfers from bat coronaviruses. Baric was one of the chief researchers involved in the Diffuse project, submitted to DARPA in 2018, which involved studying gain of function by adding a furin cleavage site to a bat coronavirus, which would have given you something that very strongly resembles SARS-CoV-2. And we have other names we've heard before regarding this, including Shizheng Li, bat coronavirus researcher at the Wuhan lab, and Peter Daszak of the Health Alliance. Rand Paul tweeted, "My committee combed through millions of COVID documents, and what did we find? Anthony Fauci destroyed records. He told others to delete emails, and then he told them to delete them from deleted files. He and his allies privately doubted the implausible line on a lab leak while publicly attacking anyone who raised it. And he never took responsibility for funding dangerous research in China. Next week, Dr. Fauci goes under oath in front of my committee, and he's going to answer for everything we found." Paul linked to a lot of Slack messages sent among members of the team showing that the actual scientific discussion was the exact opposite of what they were giving to the public.
You know, for years, Americans were told that the COVID lab leak theory was dismissed by the science itself. But, you know, my investigation has now shown that the people who peddled that certainty never even believed it themselves. Newly released Slack messages show that Christian Anderson, a scientist who got an $8 million grant from Anthony Fauci, was privately saying that the odds of a lab origin were at 30%. This is meanwhile while he's written this paper, Proximal Origin, saying there was no chance that it came from the lab. He's privately discussing with others that he's still like, oh, you know, I think it's 30% chance. Eddie Holmes is another author. He said, I'm at 20, maybe 10, but there's still a chance this came from the lab, but he's publicly saying no way. Christian Anderson told colleagues that the smoking gun that left him not comfortable with his own conclusions, that he was seeing this as a smoking gun. These scientists were publicly ruling out a lab leak, but behind closed doors, they were manipulating the narrative, hoping to stop the evidence building against their public assertions. The same authors were in direct contact with our intelligence community and NIH leadership, Anthony Fauci, throughout the pandemic. Christian Anderson expected to have a handler from within the intel community. Ernie Holmes cited a source in China he called my spy. After the DARPA diffuse proposal leaked, where they were going to create a virus very similar to what COVID was, this plan was to insert what they called a furin cleavage site into a bat coronavirus. The group discussed, hey, we need to stay off email. We need to curate our response, our correspondence. By curate, they mean destroy, delete, get rid of. They didn't want to be discovered by Freedom of Information records.
He tweeted, "In case you need a reminder for why we're still fighting to hold Dr. Fauci accountable, He included a video with 2 clips of Fauci, the first from March of 2021 when he was questioned by Rand in the Senate.
You're telling everybody to wear a mask, whether they've had an infection or a vaccine. What I'm saying is they have immunity, and everybody agrees they have immunity. What studies do you have that people that have had the vaccine or have had the infection are spreading the infection? If we're not spreading the infection, isn't it just theater?
No, it's
not.
not.
The vaccine and you're wearing 2 masks. Isn't that theater?
No, that's not. Here we go again with the theater.
But a mere 2 months later, Fauci said,
before the CDC made the recommendation change, I didn't want to look like I was giving mixed signals. But being a fully vaccinated person, the chances of my getting infected in an indoor setting is extremely low. And that's the reason why in indoor settings now, I feel comfortable about not wearing a mask.
Most of this isn't new information. It's just new evidence added onto the pile. I don't really understand how anyone could have ever really supported Fauci, but if you did because you trusted him and didn't think he had any reason to lie, okay. But what's your reason for trusting him now? This is not a conspiracy theory. It's a politician who lied about something extremely important that resulted in the loss of millions of lives. If you're not turning against a politician for lying about that, when will you turn against them? So all of that makes Anthony Fauci this week's biggest Bogon emitter. Are you looking for a new hosting provider? Have a new website you want to get going? To use the very hosting provider used by this podcast, go to hosting.bogosity.tv and you can sign up for many different hosting solutions, including shared hosting, WordPress hosting, reseller hosting, and even managed and unmanaged VPS and VDS hosting. And by using my link, you'll get $20 off and a free site migration. Enjoy fast, secure, and scalable web hosting with built-in automated backups and a unified control panel designed for flexibility and growth. They've made things incredibly easy with their AI website builder. Or go more advanced with their VPS hosting, giving you full root access to your choice of Linux OS. Let their experts take care of patches, performance tuning, security hardening, monitoring, and daily ops. All with responsive and knowledgeable support. Whatever your hosting needs are, you can find them at hosting.bogosity.tv. And now let's non-utilitarian disablify this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. And it's another one for AOC. I think I have second-hand offendedness from this one. She just did an incredibly racist thing, or at least something that would have gotten her called incredibly racist if she'd had different politics. This is from her speech at a rally where she was stumping for Justin Pearson for Congress, who is black. Now, y'all know me, folks. I wouldn't point that out unless it was relevant to the story. She delivered her address to a predominantly black audience where she apparently pretended to be predominantly black herself. Or something like that. The rich bitch New Yorker from Yorktown and Westchester apparently decided to try to sound black, which of course is how racists think a Southern accent is. Or maybe she was just trying to sound Southern? This was Tennessee after all. And of course she made sure to have plenty of black people on the stage behind her, as you do, I guess. Anyway, just listen for yourselves. Here are her remarks after talking about Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous mountaintop speech.
And I sat there and I listened to his words, and I wanted to share some of them with you all today.
Wait a minute. That speech was delivered in April of 1968, the day before he was assassinated. But AOC wasn't even born until 1989. So why is she talking like she was there? Anyway, I guess she thought she was channeling Dr. King or something when she tried to relate that to today.
We cannot afford to leave Tennessee behind. We cannot afford to leave Kentucky behind, Alabama behind, Mississippi behind, Georgia behind, South Carolina behind.
Someone should kick yo behind. She didn't even speak like that when she was quoting Martin Luther King.
We will not be chased out of places anymore, brothers and sisters.
And tell me, sister, who's chasing you out of anywhere?
Oftentimes, people try to accuse folks of us of being something like too woke. It's because they don't like when we wake up. When people wake up, we demand that billionaires pay their fair share. When we wake up, our schools get better. When we wake up, we fight for guaranteed health care for every American. When we wake up, we realize all that money we're spending on bombs abroad could be spent on schools right here at home. So yeah, they're calling us too woke because we're realizing that the math isn't adding up here in America. And it is long past time that we help our brothers and sisters wake up to.
It almost sounds like she's trying to imitate Foghorn Leghorn. AOC may be a lot of things, but she is not a Southerner. But, of course, it seems like no one who normally complains about cultural appropriation cared at all about this elocutionary blackface. Funny how when she's in Europe embarrassing herself in front of the foreign policy elites there, she doesn't seem to put on this little minstrel show. If you didn't have the right politics, and you were being this condescending to black people, you would absolutely be booed off the stage and reviled in the news media. What interesting times in which we live. So all of that makes AOC this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up this My Mama Didn't Raise No Dummies, I Dug Her Rap edition of the Bogosity podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go to donate.bogosity.tv for several ways to support and discord.bogosity.tv to join the discussion. Subscribe at the Discord, Patreon, or Subscribestar, and you can listen early and ad-free. Thank you for listening. Remember, no podcast next week, so we'll see you in 2 weeks, and until then, here's a quote from Richard Feynman. Science alone of all the subjects contains within itself the lesson of the danger of belief in the infallibility of the greatest teachers of the preceding generation. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.